It is time to enter into the void. Welcome everybody, all one of you watching to the TotV live stream, or if you're going to excuse the acronym, Tales of the Void live stream. Hello everybody, welcome to the stream tonight. Happy Wednesday to everybody. We are about to undergo, hello. We're about to undergo more of the reading of the TimeStrike Rulebook. I am Ryan, aka Tales of the Void, or as I'm known in my other YouTube channel, Tales of Valhalla as well, or you can just call me Tales. And here I got my source shirt, and I've got the rulebook right here, and we're gonna continue reading. Picking off where we were from last week, at page 17 in here, just real quickly. I'll go back to page 1 here, real quick, just to show that where we were. There's the TimeStrike Rulebook, and we had read 17 pages last Wednesday, and we're going to see how much we can get in the next hour or so, and keep on running through it. Came up with some good ideas last week. I still got to write those down. I still need to review my video to write those down. But let's just start with the continuation of the reading of how to play this game. And of course, TimeStrike, Source, the Source terrain system all come from a company called Adventure Together Games. And as of the time of recording this live stream, nothing is yet to be released. We're still a few months away from these products to be shipping to us, and that includes the Source Terrain System, TimeStrike, and Source Golf. But the rule books for TimeStrike and Source Golf 2 dropped a week or two ago, and so I have the opportunity to read through it. And this particular YouTube channel, Tales of the Void, will center on the TimeStrike universe. The story will probably do some stop motion animations of that because the terrain is awesome. Those miniatures look really good. And so that's what we'll be doing a lot in the future when it comes to the building of this YouTube channel. But just to start out, just to break in some live streams on this channel, I played Source Golf about a month ago, and now I'm reading through this book. So that's generally where we are. And yes, like the Source Terrain System is a modular hexagon terrain type system. It's really good. And TimeStrike is a miniature war game based off or to add on in addition to that terrain system. Anyway, how about since I got all that out of the way, how about we get started in continuation of reading this book? And so we're at page 17, and I did finish the boss raid setup, and now we're going to start reading player turns here in the rulebook. So let's go. Player turns. Step 1, choose a character. I guess that's important. Starting with the first player and continuing clockwise, each player will choose one non-exhausted character on their team to take a turn with. At the end of the turn, the player must mark that character as exhausted. See the rules for exhaustion in the next section. This will continue until all the characters in play are marked as exhausted. This triggers the end of the round. Step 2, activating units. After choosing a character to take a turn with, the player can activate each unit belonging to that character, including any monsters that the character has tamed, and use that unit's movement and energy stats to move them around the map and perform actions. Note: no more than 4 units may be activated in a single character's turn, so there is a limit to that. Excuse me. A unit may use any amount. I sound very nasally tonight, I don't know why. A unit may use any amount of its movement and energy in any order, meaning a unit can move, then perform an action, then continue moving. So basically, anytime. However, after performing an attack action, that unit may no longer use any more of its movement for the remainder of the turn. So that's important. Attack is the last thing you do, but anything else you can do before that in any order. If a unit has unused movement or energy remaining after being activated, it may be activated again later during the same turn. During a character's turn, its controller may activate each unit belonging to that character and each monster that character has tamed. Note, units belonging to a multi-unit character are each activated individually and can each use the full movement and energy stats listed on their character card. Exhaustion. After taking a turn with a character, exhaust that character by removing the marker from their exhaustion slot. Players will continue taking turns with different characters on their team that aren't exhausted until all player characters are exhausted. At the end of the round, and after the lost have played their action card, all exhaustion on characters is reset. If it is a player's turn and all the characters are exhausted, but other players still have non-exhausted characters to use, their turn is skipped. Character board setup. When setting up a character board, fill in all the colored slots that have numbers or symbols in the awakenings, buffs, and curses status columns. Then place a marker in the character's exhaustion slot. Boom. So in order to reveal these things, you have to remove the markers from them. Health bar. At the top center of each character board is a health bar for that character. It lists the total health that each unit belonging to that character card has. Part of me feels like I've already read this. Was it 17 or 27? You know what? Give me a moment. Since nobody is here, I was like, I'll make a quick pause if I got to, but I feel like I've read this before. Yeah, hold on. Let me just see here real quick. Let me see what page I ended on. No, okay, it was 17. All right. I felt like I've played it before, but that's where I ended on. So here. Okay. Then, well, yeah. Okay. So I'm not gonna complain about that. All right. Just if something sounds familiar, then that's just me. Okay. Anyway, let's restart the health bar. Okay, health bar. At the top center of each character board is a health bar for that character. Ta-da! It lists the total health that each unit belonging to that character card has. So this health is 4. Whenever a unit takes damage, place a marker in its health bar for each damage taken. Whenever a unit regains health or is healed by a skill, fish, an item, or other effects, remove a marker from its health bar for each health received. Once a unit receives damage markers equal to or exceeding its total health, the unit is defeated. Note, a unit's total health cannot exceed the value listed on its health bar. Calculating stats. There are several different ways in which a character's stats may be modified. When using a character's stat, always use their total stat, which can be calculated by performing the following steps. Number 1, check your character's base stat. Check to see if there are any awakening, buff, or curse modifiers showing in that stats row. Number 3, if using a skill, check to see if the skill modifies the stat. If the character has an artifact equipped, check to see if the artifact modifies the stat. Add together the values from steps 1 to 4 to determine the character's total stat. Example, a character with a movement buff has a base movement stat of 5 and their movement buff is active, showing a +2. Add 2 to the base stat for movement, resulting in a car going fast, resulting in a total movement of 7. Basic stuff. Movement. The movement stat on a character, abbreviated as move, on the character board, determines how much movement a unit associated with that character can use during their activation. Moving between 2 hexes of equal or lower elevation uses 1 movement. I guess that's important. So 1, 2, 3. Now we're going to see a lot. We're going to look at a lot of the movement scenarios in here now. So Magi, basic movement, 1, 2, 3. Yep. So equal or lower. So if it's going down, same thing, 1, 2, 3. Moving multi-hex units. When moving a multi-hex unit with a base that takes up 2 or more hex spaces, and there's some big minis for this one, also referred to as a 2-hex unit or a 3-hex unit, etc., decide which end to lead with. For instance, the front or the back. Then move the unit so the other end follows the same hexes that the leading end just left. When moving the multi-hex unit across uneven hexes, the unit must continue using its movement until its base is able to rest completely on even hexes. Note: certain skills may allow characters to flatten elevation when finishing a move. Again, there's lots of ways in which to just, change the face of the terrain, which is really cool on some of these things. Obstacles. Units cannot move through enemy units, friendly units that are engaged with enemy units, walls, monsters, or other obstacles. The only thing they can move through is other units on their team if those units are not engaged with an enemy unit. It says see page 15 for the definition of engagement. We already covered that, so we're good. Movement penalties. There are 2 types of movement penalties when moving: swimming and climbing. Whenever a unit is on a water tile, they are considered to be swimming. Units that are swimming require 1 additional movement to move between hexes. For instance, moving between 2 adjacent same level water hexes uses a total of 2 movement. Moving out of water from water to land uses a total of 2 movement. So, okay, let's see here. Okay. Interesting. So it takes a 2 movement to get in. It takes a 2 movement to move through. Moving out of water from water to land also uses a total of 2 movement. Moving into water from land to water does not use additional movement and is not considered swimming. Interesting. Okay. I'm just processing that. All right. So there's your movement. Climbing. Climbing is when a unit moves to a hex that is higher than the hex the unit is standing on. Count the difference in height between the 2 hexes to determine how much total movement it'll cost to move to a higher hex. So 1, 2, 3. And so there's no additional space. Like in Hero Escape, there would be, like, this would be actually a 2 movement. This would be considered a 4 movement. And this would be considered a 5 movement because it will require additional effort. But TimeStrike, not the case. Since the difference between any hex and an adjacent hex 1 level higher is 1, Units do not need to use any additional movement to climb to a hex that is only one level higher than their current hex. Just making that clear. Movement types. All characters have specific movement types, either walk, swim, fly, or burrow, found on their card next to a movement stat. Interesting. So move and fly. The movement types can mitigate certain obstacles when moving and alter different interactions. It's interesting they have burrow and swim as well with it. Note, if there's no type listed next to the movement stat, this means the unit has the default movement type of walk. So this is the movement type walk. Walk is the most basic type of movement and is subject to additional movement costs for swimming and climbing as directed above. Swim. Swim allows a unit to ignore the movement penalty for swimming. This means that units with the swim movement type do not use additional movement while swimming. So they know how to swim, swimmers. Fly. Fly allows a unit to ignore the movement penalties for swimming and climbing. This means that units with the fly movement type can move from one hex to any other adjacent hex by using one movement, regardless of any height difference between the hexes. They can also move over things that typically block movement, like enemy. Look at that. That's a nice picture right there. I like that. Like enemy units, walls, and other obstacles as long as they are able to end their move on an unoccupied hex. Units with the fly movement type are also never affected by fall damage during their own activation. Lastly, units with the fly movement type do not engage units when moving by them. Only if they stop do they become engaged. It's interesting, so they can fly over. All right. Burrow. I'm interested in this one the most. Burrow allows a unit to ignore the movement penalties for climbing. This means that units with the burrow movement type do not use additional movement while climbing. They can also move their things that typically block movement, like enemy units, walls, and other obstacles, as long as they are able to end their move on an unoccupied hex. However, a burrow movement type can never move up or down overhangs, even if being contested. Units with the burrow movement type are also never affected by fall damage. Interesting. Lastly, the units with a burrow movement type do not engage units when moving by them. Only if they stop do they become engaged. Here's an overhang too. Large overhang. An overhang is when one or more hexes are above another hex with the space in between. So you won't be able to burrow there. You can burrow here and here, down there, but not on the overhang. Moving under. Units can move under overhangs if it is not less than half their height rounded up. A unit can only stop under an overhang if the miniature itself fits. Moving up. Units can only move up an overhang if it is not greater than their height. Flying units can move onto overhangs regardless of their height. Okay, I love that picture though. Look at that fire coming out. It's like flamethrower type thing happening. Falling. Falling may occur when a unit moves down to a lower adjacent hex. If the difference in height from its starting hex to its target hex is equal to or greater than the height of the unit, they are falling. Certain situations other than normal movement, such as jump attacks or being contested, can also cause a unit to fall and take fall damage. Exceptions. Falling into water or moving along a road negates fall damage. Units with a fly movement type also ignore falling when moving during their own activation. Yeah, the roads are fun. Here we go. Taking fall damage. If a unit falls a hex distance equal to or greater than its height, like so, it rolls 1 combat dice after the unit lands. For each multiple of their height, they must roll 2 additional dice. Each hit rolled counts as 1 damage. So Gula is falling 11 hexes there. Look at that Gula. Okay, example. If a unit has a height of 4 and they fall 11 hexes, that's more than double their height, but not quite triple. So they roll 3 combat dice to determine how much damage is taken. If a unit has 3 height and falls 9 hexes, they roll 5 combat dice. Yikes. Falling from destroyed terrain. Whenever a unit must be moved because of land being destroyed under them, use the normal falling damage rules from their starting hex to their ending hex directly underneath them. If there is an obstacle or other unit already occupying that hex, pick any adjacent hex to fall onto, even if the terrain type is different. Roads. Roads, where we're going, we don't need roads, but we do need them in this one. A connected area of building hexes is called a road. Roads help units move around faster and allow them to ignore fall damage when moving along the road. A unit on a road hex may use 1 movement to move and or climb any distance along that road. It's important. So that means, let me repeat that again. A unit on a road hex may use 1 movement to move and or climb any distance along that road. So here you can have like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 spaces there. And all it takes to move along that entire road is just 1 of the movement. And that includes going uphill too. There could be road, if there's road hex connected to going uphill, just 1 movement. That's really cool. If a unit with a fly or burrow movement type chooses to use a road, they are not considered flying or burrowing in the process, so they will be blocked by other units who disengage passed by units. However, they can simply choose not to use the road. A unit may only use a road for the length that its base is contained by the road for its movement. For example, a 7 hex sized sentience may only move down the road if it can always fit all 7 hexes moving down that road. Boom, 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 boom. Look at that. Love the detail in this book. Engagement. Whenever 2 units occupy adjacent hexes, both units are considered to be engaged with each other. Like Gula is engaged with Jake at land. Exception. If units are adjacent to each other at different heights, the lower unit's height value must be equal or greater than the number of levels of elevation between the bases of 2 units. If the hex height is greater than the lower unit's height, those units are not engaged. But right there, in that situation, they are engaged. Rules of engagement. When a unit is engaged with an enemy unit, it may not target any unit that is not engaged with. Also, certain actions may not be performed when engaged with an enemy unit. For example, fishing, mining, and trading cannot be performed by an engaged unit. Okay, next. Simultaneous effects. If multiple units have effects that would resolve at the same time, the active player chooses the first effect to resolve. They do not have to choose their own effect. Other players then resolve their effects in turn order. This prevents the active player from resolving 2 effects before others resolve any. For example, this may happen if 2 units have skills triggered upon engaging with another unit, or during a jump attack on a target with an engagement skill. Cheap shot. A cheap can be triggered by fleeing an engagement, character skills, or other scenarios. A unit rolls a 1d6 for a chance of dealing damage to the target. So it's like a disengage in HeroScape. If the unit performing the cheap shot rolls a hit, they deal 1 damage to the recipient of the cheap shot. Since a cheap shot is not an attack action, units cannot defend against a cheap shot. Yeah, it's a disengage. Lost units do not perform cheap shots in the boss battle royale mode. Interesting. Lost units will perform cheap shots in the boss raid mode, but do not roll for damage. They just automatically deal 1 damage. Interesting. Okay, and see rules from this on page 38. Okay, that's interesting. Fleeing an engagement. When a unit willingly leaves an engagement with an enemy unit by using its movement, it is considered to be fleeing the engagement. In this case, an enemy unit may perform a cheap shot against the fleeing unit. The cheap shot happens immediately after moving unit enters a hex where it is no longer engaged with the enemy. If a unit flees engagement with multiple enemy units, each disengaged unit may perform a cheap shot against the fleeing unit. Okay, Jake disengaging Gula and Magi, so he disengaged both. However, there are exceptions. A unit is not considered to be fleeing engagement if it leaves due to the contest or climb sentience action. An ability is cast on them that moves them, or if an item is used to move them. Okay, so certain cases, if you're not making the decision to move, if it's being made for you, then yeah, I can get that. Combat tip. Staying engaged with enemies is a great way to prevent them from using their energy efficiently. Okay, interesting. Yeah, because you go through wasting energy because then you can't, you can't do certain things. You can't fish, you can't mine, you can't move around. Makes sense. Actions and energy. Alright. Actions and energy. During a unit's activation, that unit can use its energy stat to complete unique actions before, during, or after its movement. All actions require 1 energy to use and cannot be performed more than once per turn by the same unit. Each individual unit of a multi-unit character may spend the full amount of energy listed on the unit's character board. No more than 4 energy may be used in a single character's turn. This would also apply to a survivor with a tamed monster. Notes: the same action cannot be done multiple times by the same unit during a turn. For example, a single unit with 3 energy cannot mine 3 times, but a character with 3 different units that each have 1 energy could mine with each of those units when activating them during the same turn. This is what makes multi-unit characters strong gatherers. Below is a list. I'm slurring my words a little bit. And no alcohol at all. I don't know what's going on. Where's that? Okay. Below is a list of different actions units can take during their activation. Action: fish. Fishing is fun. The fish action allows units to catch fish from the water that can heal, cleanse, and buff characters. With a little bit of luck, fishing can also provide valuable treasures. How to fish. And here is, I think that's Hod, right? Yeah, Hod, I think. My guy. If a unit on a landed hex is adjacent to an unoccupied water tile that is lower than a unit's base, the unit may use 1 energy to perform the fish action and roll a d20. On a successful roll, 10 plus, the player will draw one fish card and place it in the inventory of the character that performed the fish action. Units engaged with an enemy cannot perform the fish action. Yep, can't. If you're engaged, you can't fish. Action, mine. The mine action allows units to collect materials that are used for building roads and walls. So you can literally change the face of the terrain around here. How to mine. If a unit is adjacent to an unoccupied resource hex, it may use 1 energy to perform the mine action to collect 1 material. The player will take the resource hex and place it on the inventory of the character that performed the mine action. The resource hex cannot be more than 4 hexes below the unit's base or 4 hexes above the unit's height when mining it. Legion in position to mine a resource hex. Yep, right there. Resource hexes that are in a character's inventory are referred to as materials. Units engaged with the enemy cannot perform the mine action. So, yeah, there it is, just right there. Boom. Oh, hey, and so there's another idea. Also have an additional tray. So what we need is for the edges, to have attachable trays. So dice roll tray, trays for to pull cards, but also trays for your character card and a for the character card space to put your materials, your mining materials, and your fish cards that you pull. So you need bigger space for it. So yeah, continuing on with the tray idea, because we had that last time. Critical fishing failure. If a single hex unit rolls a 1 during the fish action, that unit will critically fail and fall into the water hex that they had targeted to fish in. Oh boy, yeah. You don't want to go through that embarrassment then. That means you get a piranha of a fish. Yeah, don't want to fall into the water. If you want to be a terrible fisherman, then totally bomb that. That's actually funny. I'll have to animate some type of hilarity when it comes to that. Okay, action, trade. The trade action allows units to pass various loot throughout the void. This feels like, what is it, Monopoly. Materials, fish, items, and artifacts are all considered loot when trading. How to trade. A unit can use 1 energy to perform the trade action with any character regardless of the distance or line of sight between the 2 characters. Interesting. The active character can transfer 1 loot from their inventory to the target character's inventory. The target unit has the option to transfer 1 loot from their inventory back to the active character. This means a character may both give and receive loot during a single trade action. Okay, so only one has to do the action. Okay. Units engaged with the enemy cannot perform the trade action. The unit targeted by the trade action cannot trade back if it is engaged with an enemy unit. Okay, so you can trade to someone who's engaged, but that person can't give something back. That's a thing to note. Units that are in the sentience may not participate in trade actions unless you're engaged, like are on sentience. Okay, so that's a perfect thing to note. So you have to be engaged, but not on the sentience. Okay. Action. Climb sentience. This is fun. Each sentience has multiple tiers which can be occupied by units. While on the sentience, units can attack the sentience as well as other units on the sentience. In addition, units that are on the sentience cannot be targeted by or target units, whether friendly or enemy, that are not on the sentience. Interesting. How to climb the sentience. If a unit is engaged to the sentience, it may use 1 energy to perform the climb sentience action, allowing the unit to climb to any unoccupied tier of the sentience. Basic. Boom. There you go. Units that are on the sentience already can Units that are on the sentience already can, instead of use the climb sentience action, to either jump off the sentience or be placed on an unoccupied hex adjacent to the sentience, or move to a different tier on the sentience. The sentience cannot target units climbing on its own back unless specifically stated. So it can't be targeted if you're on the sentience. Interesting. Units on the same tier of the sentience are considered engaged. Units on a sentience tier above or below a unit are also considered engaged with that unit. Note: units do not take fall damage when climbing off or being knocked off a sentience. That's another important thing to note. Action. Contest. The contest action allows units to challenge other units for positioning. Contest can result in swapping positions with the opposing unit or pushing the opposing unit out of their position to an adjacent position. Contesting can be used to push enemies off high elevations, swap positions to take over high ground, force disengagement without risking cheap shots, or simply to assert dominance. How to contest. If a unit is engaged to an enemy unit, it may use 1 energy to perform the contest action against that unit. During a contest, both players roll a 1d20. If the action is successful, if the active unit rolls higher than the contested unit. Contesting players may add 1 to the die roll for each remaining health on their unit, and 1 to their roll for each hex or sentience tier higher than their unit is than the other contestant. Okay, I mean, it's some stuff you got to figure out, but there you go. Note: ties are awarded to the defender. That's an interesting thing to note. Okay. Like I said, this is definitely a game that's a bit more complicated than HeroScape. You really got to memorize it to learn everything, but at least the rulebook is pretty clear when it comes to these things. Okay, Mara contesting Legion, right there. Okay, example. Mara contests a Legion unit. Mara rolls a 16 and adds a 6 for her current health for a total of 22. Legion rolls an 8 and adds a 4 for his current health and 3 for the number of hexes above Mara. It's above Mara for a total of 15. In this case, Mara gets a lucky dice roll and she wins the contest. If the contest action is successful, the active player can switch the positions of the 2 units. Or the active player can instead choose to push the contested unit by moving it 1 hex in any direction that is lower than or equal to the contested unit's current position. So either switch or push. Fall damage. Only units that are pushed by a successful contest action are subject to fall damage, not those in which the position is swapped. Right. Okay. Cheap shots. Since the contest action does not use the unit's movement stat, units moved by contest action never receive cheap shots. Contesting different sized units. Units can only contest units with an equal or lower hex size. A 1 hex unit cannot contest a 2 hex unit, a 2 hex unit cannot contest a 3 hex unit, and so on. Contesting the sentience. Units can also contest each other for positions on the sentience. A unit on a tier of the sentience can contest another unit with an adjacent tier of the sentience. If successful, the contester may either switch positions with the contested unit or place the contested unit on any unoccupied space adjacent to the sentience. It's just it's battling and fighting even before you're like throwing fists at each other. Action. Tame monster. A tame monster action is an attempt to take control. Excuse me. I'll do that again. Action. Tame monster. A tame monster action is an attempt to take control of a lost monster beast or brute, and add it to your team by using a fish. Failing to tame a monster, however, will result in the monster attacking back. Note, only survivors may tame monsters. And what was really cool is that my first time playing TimeStrike, and I think the rules had changed since I played it, but I played it on the game Simulator on Steam and Tabletop Simulator, and I had Hod, and it was a Moggy, and my first bit I just had beginner's luck, and yep, I was able to tame the Moggy, and then I was able to use it the rest of the game. That was a fun first play. How to tame a monster. If a survivor unit is engaged with a lost monster, oh yeah, I already read this. Okay, or did I? Wait, I'll read it again. If a survivor unit is engaged with a lost monster, and the unit can try to tame it using a fish. The unit will use 1 energy to discard 1 fish and roll a 1d20. To succeed, the unit must roll greater than or equal to 3 times the monster's current health. So if the health is 3, then 3, 6, 9. So it's got to be greater than 9. Example, a monster with 4 remaining health would require a roll of 12, 3 times 4 or higher to be tamed. Failing to tame. A failed tame roll will result in the monster dealing damage back to the unit who tried to tame it. A beast will deal 1 damage back. A brute will deal 2 damage back. Ooh, okay, so you gotta really think about how to tame these guys sometimes. That is important to note. This damage can be blocked by using a monster trap. Okay, interesting. And we're only like, let's see here. We're getting through it, but I still, we might, is it like this is going to take 3 live streams to read through, because my voice can only go so far, and we're already done this for about 40 minutes. Actually, kind of like maybe like 30 minutes, 35 minutes, something like that. All right, we'll keep on going. I'm trying to keep on going to 10:30. We'll see where we're at. Taming a beast. If a beast is successfully tamed, it regains 2 health, and its character card is placed next to the character board of the unit that tamed it. So it might be, beneficial to wound these beasts a bit, just so they're easier to tame. On future turns, the tame beast can now be activated when taking a turn with the character that tamed it. This effectively allows you to activate multiple characters during a single turn. Taming a brute. If a brute is successfully tamed, it regains 2 health, and its character board is placed next to the character board of the unit that tamed it. Place the unit that tamed the brute into the mount slot atop the brute unit. The 2 units are now referred to collectively as a behemoth and are subject to special rules. We'll have to wait till we're page 37. If the active unit was previously mounted on a different brute, that brute will revert to a lost unit controlled by the sentients. Action cast ability. The cast ability action allows units to use an ability type school on their character board. How to cast ability? If a unit's character board contains a skill labeled as ability, that unit can spend 1 energy to perform the cast ability action and use the ability according the character's ability using the character's stats. Action attack. The attack action allows units to attempt to damage other units. Any unit can target and attack another unit by using the attack unit's range and attack stats. After performing the attack action, the active unit may no longer use their movement for the remainder of the turn. Targeting a unit. The following rules apply for any action, skill, or item that requires a unit to be targeted, not just the attack action. When an action, skill, or item requires a target to be selected, check to make sure the targeted unit is first within the range specified by the action, skill, or item. If no range is specified by the item, then it has unlimited range. Then check to make sure the targeted unit is within the line of sight of the unit using the skill, item, or performing the action. Exception. Units that are engaged with each other may always target each other, even if they do not have line of sight to each other. Checking range. To check the range, count the number of hexes horizontally between the unit and its target. Do not include height or vertical hexes on this count. If the target is within or equal to the specified range, it is considered within range. Checking line of sight. Line of sight is used to determine whether one unit can see another unit. Establishing line of sight is required when attempting to target a unit unless a skill or item specifies otherwise. Unlike range, the line of sight is a straight line down between the target unit's hitbox and the vision point of the unit that is selecting a target. Line of sight is unrelated to the number of hexes between two units. The red dot is the vision point and the light gray is targetable. So there's where they see, and that's what you can target. Can't target that apparently. Interesting. Okay. Example hitboxes. Number 1. Check the vision point of the targeting unit and the hitbox of the target unit. Stand behind the targeting unit to see if its vision point can see any part of the target unit's hitbox. If an unobstructed straight line can be drawn between the targeting unit's vision point and the targeted unit's hitbox, then the targeting unit has line of sight to the targeted unit. Say that 5 times fast. Recommendation. If it is difficult to determine whether a unit has line of sight to their target, use a string, rubber band, or laser pointer to attempt connecting the targeting unit's vision point to the hitbox of the targeted unit with a straight line. If you cannot connect the 2 points with a straight line, then line of sight is not established. Note, only the unit of the active player may be turned or adjusted while targeting another unit. In the above example, Mara is trying to target Moggy with a ranged attack. Looking from Mara's vision point, Moggy is clearly not in her line of sight. Yeah, you can see. Yep. If Moggy was 1 hex over, you can now see that Mara has a clear line of sight on Moggy. Yep. Targeting through other units. A unit may attempt to target another unit even if there are other units between them, but the targeting unit must still have a clear line of sight to their target. If the units between the targeting unit and the targeted unit fully obstruct the line of sight, then the targeting unit is unable to successfully target the unit. Attacking a unit. If another unit is within range and line of sight of a player's unit during their activation, the active unit may use 1 energy to select a target and perform the attack action. How to attack. Number 1. Select a unit as a target for the attack. When performing the attack action, the targeted unit must be no further away than the attacking unit's range stat. Remember that if a unit is engaged with an enemy, it may only target units that is engaged with when performing the attack action. Calculate the total attack stat by checking the attack stat of the character board as well as any modifiers incurred by height, advantage, awakening buffs, curses, or an equipped artifact. Roll the number of combat dice equal to the attacker's total attack stat. Each rolled attack icon will count as one hit against the target. After performing the attack action, the active unit may no longer use their movement for the remainder of the turn. Note, be sure to check a character's skills for different types of attacks that may require the player to roll lucky sides. Yeah, because there's sides like that. Area of effect. Certain skills, attacks, or other effects may affect multiple hexes or units and is known as area of effect, or AoE. Area of effect is sometimes referred to as AoE. There you go. In this case, the attacker still only rolls for the attack once, and each unit that is affected by the attack rolls defense individually in an order chosen by the attacking player. AoE skills may be used while engaged as long as the target of the AoE is a unit the attacker is engaged with. Note, area of effect skills, attacks, and other effects hit all units within the specified area or range, including friendly, stealthed, or even the unit that initiated the AoE, unless otherwise specified. Okay, here, give me a second. All right. Defending an attack. When a unit is attacked by another unit and the attacker rolls at least one hit, the defender can choose to defend itself from the attack. If the attacker doesn't roll any hits, the defender cannot roll for defense. How to defend. Calculate the total of defense stat by checking the defender stat on the character board, as well as any modifiers incurred by height advantage, buffs, curses, or an equipped artifact. Roll the number of combat dice equal to the defender's total defense stat. Each rolled defense icon will count as one block against a hit from the attacker. For each hit that was not blocked, place a damage marker in the health bar of the defending unit. Note, be sure to check for defense skills on the character that can be used. Combat example. This example, Roland Wright is attacking Jake left. Roland rolls 3 attack icons, which is 3 hits. Jake rolled 1 defense icon, which is 1 block. Therefore, Jake blocks 1 of the 3 incoming hits and will receive 2 damage markers. Jake defending Roland's attack bubble. However, Jake was using his enchanted armor skill by rolling 1 lucky block. Ooh, lucky. He will now block an additional hit. Jake now blocks for 2 and takes 1 damage marker. The second part of the skill does not trigger because Jake did take damage. Okay. And here it is. Enchanted armor. Must not have defense curse. Roll at least 1 lucky block to block 1 additional hit. If Jake Allen is engaged to the attacker and takes no damage, give the attacker the attack curse. Interesting. Then we look at Roland that used his Magma Fist skill, which by rolling 1 lucky hit will give Jake Allen the defense curse after combat resolved. If Jake already had the defense curse, it would have become an extra hit instead. Interesting. Yeah, attack must be enraged. Roll at least 1 lucky hit to give the target the defense curse. If the target already has the defense curse or is a lost unit, add 1 extra hit to his attack instead. Height advantage. If one unit is on a higher hex than the other unit, it is considered to have a height advantage against that unit. Height advantage allows the unit to have an increased total attack or total defense stat while attacking or defending. How to use height advantage. If a unit attacking another unit from height, its base is higher than the base of the unit it is targeting, the attacking unit adds +1 when calculating its total attack stat. Okay, so yeah, it's like Hero Escape a little bit. when it comes to that, if a unit is defending an attack against its base higher than the attacker's, the defending unit adds +1 when calculating its total defense stat. So height advantage, basically. If you have the high ground, you have the high ground. There they are. Melee units. A unit with a range stat of 1 is a melee unit, which will be listed next to the range stat in its character board. A melee unit can only attack units it is engaged with. The range stat of melee units cannot be modified. Note, melee units may still have range skills that can be used against non-adjacent enemies. Jump attack. A jump attack is an altered form of the attack action that allows melee units to increase their attack range by leaping through the air to come smashing down on their targets below. How to jump attack. If a melee unit is not engaged with an enemy and has not yet used its attack action and still has the energy for it during its activation, it may be able to use jump attack. A target enemy unit must be within 2 range and its base must be on a lower hex than the attacking unit. The hex of the attacker is landing on, or the hex the attacker is landing on must be lower than its current position and cannot be more than 2 hexes away from the hex the attacker started on. Place the melee unit on an unoccupied hex adjacent to its target so that the 2 units become engaged. Use 1 energy to perform an attack action against the targeted unit. During this attack, the attacking unit is considered to have height advantage. Number 3. After resolving the attack, if the attacker's original position and the hex that it landed on causes a unit to be considered falling, the attacker must roll for fall damage. Okay. In the previous image, Legion right sees Gula left within 2 range, it was up here, on a lower hex. Legion jumps off the higher hex to the lower hex adjacent to Gula to perform a jump attack. All movement type units are subjected to fall damage when jump attacking. However, landing in water still negates fall damage during jump attacks. Interesting. If the attack of a jump attack would be considered a simultaneous effect against the other effects like engagement triggers. A character can land lower or higher than their target when performing a jump attack, but they must be engaged with the target when landing, otherwise they are landing too low or high. Defeating a unit or character. A unit is defeated when the number of damage markers on its health bar is equal to or greater than that unit's total health. Remove defeated units from the map. A character is defeated when all units belonging to the character have been defeated. Steps to take when a character is defeated. Number 1. If the character was defeated by an attack, skill, or cheap shot, or any loot in the defeated character's inventory is transferred to the inventory of the character that defeated it. If defeated by a lost unit, their loot is discarded instead. Remove the defeated character from the map, so take their loot. That's interesting. I think I like that. Awakenings. A character can unlock awakenings depicted with a gold border during gameplay, which allows them to gain permanent additional stats. How to awaken a character. Survivors can complete trials, find items, use skills, or push the sentience through phases to unlock awakenings. When a character awakens a stat, remove the marker to reveal the modifier for that stat. This modifier is unlocked permanently for the remainder of the game. Oh, interesting. Okay. So it just stays there. At the start of the boss battle royale or skirmish modes, each survivor draws their trial card. Their name will be listed on the trial. This card will show trials or objectives that must be completed by a character to awaken a specific stat. Once a character is fully awakened, They may discard their trial card and draw one artifact. Okay. Note, if a character awakens a stat using a different method, the player no longer has to complete that trial before discarding their card. Buffs and curses. Buff and curse stat modifiers can be gained by and removed from characters throughout the game. When a buff or curse is gained by a character, the marker is removed from the slot for that buff or curse. When a buff or curse is removed from a character, the marker is placed back in the corresponding slot. Okay, and there's the buffs, curses. The buffs and curses can be applied to characters through skills or other events. Some characters cannot receive certain buffs or curses. The corresponding slots on the characters' boards are gray instead of colored. Buffs. Buffs depicted with blue borders typically increase stats and add new beneficial effects to the character. If a character has both buff and curse applied to the same stat, move, range, attack, or defense, the buff and curse cancel each other out completely, regardless of their values. Example, if a character has the movement buff, but then receives the movement curse, this results in the character applying no modifiers to its movement stat from the movement curse or buff. The movement, range, attack, and defense buffs only change the total stats of the character. There are also two other types of buffs that have unique effects. Hold on. Okay. Stealth. Units with the stealth buff cannot be selected as the direct target of attacks, skills, items, or other effects from units that they are not engaged with. They will still be hit by area of effect attacks, skills, items, or other effects which do not target them directly. There are two conditions that remove the stealth buff from a character. First is if the unit receives damage in any way, immediately remove the stealth buff. The second is when a character begins their turn and they have the stealth buff. It is removed. The loss can still target units in stealth to spawn mobs near or move towards them, but they can directly attack these units from range. Engage. The next time a unit with the enraged buff attacks or defends, the unit will add the number of dice listed in the enraged buff box to its attack or defense roll. After the enraged buff is used, the buff is immediately removed. Note, engage must be used in the very next attack or defense roll. It cannot be saved. Or enrage, enrage. Not engage. Enrage must be used on the very next attack or defense roll. It cannot be saved. Okay, interesting. Curses. Curses depicted with red borders typically decrease stats and add detrimental effects to the character. The movement, range, attack, and defense curses only change the total stats of the character. There are also two other types of curses that have unique effects. Affliction. When a character has the Affliction curse, the character will not take the amount of damage listed on the Affliction curse at the end of the character's next turn. I'm sorry. Let me reread that again. Okay, I think I'm almost done for tonight. When the character has the Affliction curse, the character will take the amount of damage listed on the Affliction curse at the end of the character's next turn. Once the damage is taken, the Affliction curse is immediately removed. If a character obtains the Affliction curse in the middle of their turn, the curse is not triggered until the end of their next turn. Okay, so when you're afflicted, you'll take the amount of damage listed on the Affliction curse at the end of the character's next turn. Okay, interesting. Some characters have a positive value on the Affliction curse. If so, the Affliction curse heals that character instead of inflicting damage. In this case, the Affliction curse is still removed at the end of the character's turn, even if no damage was healed. Silence. When a character receives a silence curse, the character's skills are reset, it is unable to use any skills, and at the end of the character's next turn, the silence curse is removed. If a character obtains the silence curse in the middle of their turn, the curse is not removed until after their next turn. Interesting. Silence affects all skill types unless otherwise stated. Skills. Each character has a list of skills on the right side of the character board which can be used during the game. There are several different types of skills that can be used in different scenarios. Skills can alter a unit's stats when the skill is in effect. So remember to add those when calculating total stat numbers. Skills that require a target will use the character's range stat when targeting unless otherwise stated. Some skills have bold text listing requirements to use them or other information. Ability. A unit can use an ability skill by performing cast ability action. Boom. Like this one. Allure. Target a single hex enemy unit within range of roll D16. If this is rolled, place the targeted unit on an adjacent hex so that they are engaged with the miniature. Okay. And then, so that's an ability you use. Passive skills are either always in effect or trigger during described circumstances. Passive skills do not require a unit to perform the cast ability action in order to be used. Okay, so that is the end of page 31. And we're halfway through skills, but I think I'm going to end it there for tonight at page 31. So next time I stream, I don't know if it's going to be next Wednesday or the Wednesday after, we'll see. But next time we stream, it'll be part 3, reading through TimeStrike Rulebook, and we will be able to finish it. I think I'm going to read through 10 pages within a good hour or hour and a half. So with that, I know it's like a little bit early tonight, but I am tired because working all day and working all night. Well, not all night, but you know what I'm saying. It's long, it's tough, but we're getting through this, and yeah, so either next Wednesday or the Wednesday after, or sometime, we will get the last few pages of the TimeStrike Rulebook so we can begin to understand what it's going to take to play this game in the future. And I mean, nothing that I read really sounds terrible for me. I think everything is written okay. Some people may challenge me on that if you want to, but there's one reason why it's good to read it out loud. So if anything comes out confusing or typos or anything, you're able to identify things more than you would if you're just reading through it silently. So I do like reading through these out loud, and for you to also read through and listen through. And eventually I'm going to compile these in one video so that way a person can listen and be like, does that make sense? You know, it'd be good for reference in the future. So with that being said, I do thank everybody for watching, or if you're watching this on a replay, appreciate you. And with that, I will bid all of you a good night. And I'll end these streams like I always end these streams on the Tales of the Void YouTube channel. The greatest adventure is yet to come. And we'll see all you guys next time. Later now. Bye-bye.